Welcome back to the Explainer. You know, clinical data is all about telling a story. And today, we're getting into a really critical part of that, connecting the dots. We're going to be using the SDTM-ETL tool to link different data sets. Why does this matter? Well, it's how you turn a pile of raw data into a real story about what's happening with patients. So, let's just dive right in.
Just think about it for a second. In any clinical trial, things don't just happen in a vacuum, right? A patient has an adverse event. You'll hear us call that an AE. And what happens next? Well, they're probably given some kind of medication, what we call a concomitant medication, or CM. These two things are linked. The data has to show that connection. The real question is, how do you actually do that? How do you link a row in one table to a row in a completely different one?
All right, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll talk about why this is even a thing. Then, we'll get our hands dirty prepping the adverse events data. After that, we'll map the medications data, create that all-important link, and then, the best part, we'll check out our final results. Okay, first things first. Before we jump into the software and start clicking around, let's really get a handle on the why. Why is there a whole special process just for this? Well, the answer has a name, the RELREC domain.
Yeah, you can really think of the RELREC domain as like a bridge. See, your standard SDTM datasets, they don't talk to each other like normal relational database tables. So RELREC was invented to be that official connector. It's the standard, approved way to say, hey, this adverse event over here is directly related to this medication over there.
All right, enough theory, let's actually start building this thing. Step 1 is prepping what we call the parent data. In our example, that's the adverse events dataset, the AE table. This is where the story begins, the source of the whole relationship.
So when you look inside the AE data, the most important piece of the puzzle is this line number. It comes straight from the case report form, and it's what makes each event unique. Our first job, we have to map that line number to a variable called ASSPID. You can just think of ASSPID as a unique nickname, a special ID that we give to each event so we can find it later. And boom, once you've done that mapping, this is what you get, a nice, clean AE data set. See that ASPID column? Every single adverse event now has its own unique ID. This is our anchor. This is what we're going to use to build the connection. Okay, so our parent record is all set. Now it's time to get the child record ready. For us, that's the concomitant medications data, the CM dataset. This is the other side of the story, right? The action that was taken because of the adverse event.
Now, setting up this CM dataset is actually pretty straightforward. You just start by dragging the CM domain right from the template. The tool's going to pop up and ask you to check its looping structure. Don't worry, that's just its way of handling situations where, a patient might be on a few different meds. Once you've okayed that, you can get to the fun part, just dragging and dropping to map your variables.
And right here, this is the key. Tucked away in the medication data, you'll find an item called AE line number. And guess what? This number is the exact same one from our AE data, the one we turned into that unique ASPID nickname. This is the golden ticket. It's the key that's going to lock these two records together for good.
But wait, before we can make that final link, we run into a super common problem. I'm sure you've seen this. The dates. They're split into 3 different fields, one for the day, one for the month, and one for the year. To make a proper SDTM date, we've got to stitch those back together into one piece.
Now, the way we do this is surprisingly easy. We're just going to start by dragging the start year from our source data and drop it right onto the target date field. And look at that. The tool starts writing the code for us automatically. Pretty cool, right? Now, you're going to see this warning pop up about incompatible data types. Don't panic. This is totally normal. It's happening because the tool wants a full date and we've only given it a year. Just click Use Anyway. Then it's a good idea to rename the little temporary variable it makes to something that makes sense, like $year. And then you just do it again. Repeat that exact same process for the start month and start day. You just drag, drop, click through the warning. Once you've done that for all 3 pieces, you'll see 3 new lines in your script. Each one is a little temporary variable holding our year, month, and day.
Okay, here's where we put it all together. This is the last step for our date problem. We just have to manually type in one little line of code using a function called concat. And all this does is it glues our 3 little variables, $year, $month, and $day, together into a single string. We'll stick some hyphens in between them, and what do you get? A perfectly formatted date. Done.
And check this out. This is the payoff. We run that script, and we get this beautifully prepared CM table. Just look at that start date column. All the dates are put together perfectly. Now,
Now we are finally ready to make the connection. All right, here we go. This is the main event. This is what we've been building up to this whole time, actually creating that link between the adverse events and the medications.
So, inside the mapping for our CM data, you just go up to the Insert menu. And you're going to see an option there, New SDTM Variable for RELREC. That's the magic button. You're basically telling the software, okay, get ready, I'm about to define a relationship.
And when you click that, the tool generates the special RELREC function for you. It looks a little technical, but it's actually super simple. The first part just says what the parent table is, in our case, AE. The second part says what variable we're linking to, that's our ASPID. And that last part? That's just the variable from our medication data that has the matching number. That's it.
Okay, we've done it. The link is officially created. So, moment of truth, right? Let's take a look at the final output and see what this RELREC table actually looks like. Now, one quick thing. Sometimes the software will default to what's called a one-to-one relationship, meaning every single link gets its own row. But think about it. What if one adverse event was treated with, say, 3 different drugs? In that case, a one-to-many relationship is way, way clearer.
And this is what that looks like. You just enable grouping, and you get this. This is a beautiful, clean output. I mean, look at RELID number 3. It tells you crystal clear that for this one subject, the one adverse event with the ID of 2 is linked to 3 different medications. It's all right there. Perfect. So you see, this was never just about clicking buttons in a piece of software. It's so much more than that. When you create these relationships, you suddenly unlock the power to ask way smarter questions of your data. You can finally see the real-world cause and effect, the stories that were always hiding in plain sight, just buried in the tables. So now that you know how to connect the dots, what new stories is your data going to tell?